We were at my son's 8th birthday backyard party. My sister-in-law walked by his new $900 gaming console, spilled soda straight into it and said, "Oops, it was an accident." My son stared at the dead screen. I didn't argue. I took my son inside and checked the backyard camera. By morning, my sister was crying in my driveway. The soda hit the console vent at 3:22 p.m., and the screen went black before my son could put down his controller. Leo was sitting cross-legged on the patio in front of the TV stand we had set up for his birthday party, a folding table with a tablecloth printed with pixelated game characters, the new console centered on it like a trophy. 14 kids were scattered across the backyard. Some on the bouncy castle, some at the craft table, some chasing each other around the oak tree that dropped acorns into the neighbor's yard every October. Leo was showing 3 of his classmates how to set up a multiplayer round. He had the controller in both hands. His thumbs were moving. He was smiling. That part matters, because Leo does not smile easily in groups. And this was the first birthday party where he had asked for more than 4 kids to come. Paige walked across the patio holding an open bottle of Coke. She was my sister-in-law, my husband Wes's older sister, 39, and she had been at the party for an hour and a half without saying more than 6 words to me. She walked past the bouncy castle, past the cooler, past the dessert table, and stopped directly behind the console. She looked left, she looked right. Then she tilted the bottle and poured it into the top vent of a $900 gaming console, while 14 children and 20 parents were in the same backyard. The screen flickered once, then died. A thin curl of smoke rose from the vent. Leo pressed the power button 3 times. Nothing happened. Oops, Paige set the bottle on the table next to the dead console. It was an accident. I tripped. She did not trip. There was nothing on the patio to trip over. She was standing still when she poured. I saw it from the kitchen window, and even from 30 feet away through glass, I could see that her arm moved the way arms move when they are doing something on purpose. Leo stared at the screen. The 3 classmates looked at each other, then at Leo, then at the black screen. One of them said, "Is it broken?" Leo didn't answer. He was still holding the controller. His thumbs had stopped moving, but his hands hadn't let go. I almost walked out there and said something I would have had to explain to 20 parents. My hand was on the back door handle, and I could feel the speech building in my chest, the kind that starts calm and turns into something else. But I looked at Leo's face through the window. He wasn't crying. He wasn't shouting. He was still. The kind of still that 8-year-old boys go when they have already learned that some things don't get fixed by asking. I went outside, crossed the patio, knelt next to him, and said, "Come inside with me." He looked up. "Is it broken?" "Yeah, buddy, come inside." He stood up. He still had the controller in his hand. He carried it into the house the way you carry something you are not ready to put down yet, and he sat on the kitchen stool and set the controller on the counter next to the birthday cake that we hadn't cut yet. The 3 classmates went to the bouncy castle. Paige was talking to another parent by the cooler when I passed her. She didn't look at me. I walked down the hallway to my home office, sat at my desk, and opened the security camera app on my laptop. We had 5 cameras on the property, 2 at the front, 1 on the garage, 1 covering the backyard and patio, and 1 inside my office aimed at the door and the personal filing cabinet. The office camera was there because I run my accounting practice from that room, and client records require secure handling. The cabinet held family documents separately from client files, but the camera ran continuously regardless. Earlier that afternoon, Wes had gone inside for packing tape, and the office door had failed to latch behind him. I started with the backyard camera. Scrub back to 3:20 p.m., 2 minutes before the pour. Paige was standing near the dessert table, her phone in one hand, the Coke bottle unopened in the other. She was watching Leo, not the party, not the other kids. Leo. She watched him for 40 seconds. Then she turned to Chloe, her 9-year-old daughter, and said something. The backyard camera captured video and ambient sound. Carmen later told me not to distribute any audio until she had checked the state's recording consent rules, but the visual footage alone showed everything that mattered. Paige turned to Chloe and mouthed words. Then Chloe walked away. Paige opened the Coke, walked to the console, looked left, looked right, poured, not a spill, not a stumble, a pour. Controlled, deliberate, 4 seconds of steady liquid into the ventilation slot. Her hand was steady. Her face was neutral. She set the bottle down, stepped back, and delivered the line she had prepared. Oops. It was an accident. I tripped. I watched it 3 times. The 3rd time I paused on her face at the moment of the pour. No surprise, no reaction, no flinch. The face of a woman completing a task. If you're new to Betrayal Unfolded, this is how it starts. A dead console at a birthday party and a camera that caught everything. But the console was the surface. What the camera showed me next was the floor dropping out. I switched to the office camera. At 2:51 p.m., Paige walked through the door that Wes had left unlatched. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look around the hallway first. She went straight to the desk like she already knew which drawer held what she wanted. She opened the top drawer, took out a green folder, removed 2 pages, and photographed them with her phone. Both sides, holding each page flat against the desk surface so the image wouldn't blur. Then she replaced the pages, closed the folder, put it back, and walked out. Total time in the office, 94 seconds. I watched it twice. The second time, I focused on her hands. They were steady, the same steadiness she would show 23 minutes later when she poured the Coke. The woman on the screen was not nervous. She was executing steps she had planned before she arrived at the party. The green folder held my copy of the education trust statements. Gloria, Wes's mother, had created a revocable education trust in January 2021 and served as its original trustee. The trust held $24,000, with $12,000 allocated as Leo's beneficiary share and $12,000 as Chloe's. Paige had no legal authority over either share, no withdrawal rights, no signatory power. None. Paige was photographing the most recent statement, the one that showed Leo's share at $3,600 instead of $12,000. $8,400 was missing from my son's education trust. But I'm ahead of myself. To understand why that number hit the way it did, you need to understand the list. 2 weeks before the party, Leo and I sat at the kitchen table with a yellow legal pad and built a list. 12 games, numbered 1 through 12, researched together over the course of 6 evenings after dinner. The process was Leo's idea. He had watched a video on his tablet about a kid who ranked every game he owned, and he wanted to do the same thing, except in advance. Before he had played any of them, he wanted to know what was coming. Leo is like that. He prepares. He reads the menu before we get to the restaurant. He lays out his school clothes the night before. The school counselor calls it socially cautious. The console was not a babysitter. It was a bridge. Multiplayer games let Leo connect with classmates from behind a screen, which was the distance he needed to feel safe enough to talk. By August, he had a group of 4 kids he played with every afternoon. They called themselves the Lava Squad. The first time I heard him laugh out loud while playing, I was in the kitchen drying a pan, and I stood there holding it for 30 seconds because the sound was so unfamiliar in our house at that volume. Each evening, we sat with the laptop between us and watched trailers together. He wanted co-op games, the ones where 2 people play on the same screen, not alone. He wrote notes next to each title in his careful 8-year-old handwriting. Mom says this one has co-op. Dad says he'll try this, but he'll be bad at it. Next to game number 7, a racing game with cartoon characters. He had written, Chloe might like this one. That line sat in my chest like a stone for days after the console died. Chloe might like this one. He was thinking about his cousin. He was planning to share with the daughter of the woman who would pour soda into his birthday present and call it an accident. The game list was taped to the wall next to the TV before the party started. 12 games. 0 checked off. The list stayed up after the console died. Leo didn't take it down that night. He just stopped looking at it. Wes and I drove home from his parents' house on Thanksgiving last year in silence for 10 minutes before I said it. Leo's science fair project, a model solar system he had built with painted styrofoam balls and wire hangers, had been on the kitchen counter at Gloria's house, set back against the wall near the breadbasket so it wouldn't be in anyone's way. Leo had positioned each planet carefully before dinner and explained the orbital distances to Gloria, who listened with the patience of a woman who had raised 2 children and understood that the explanation was the gift, not the project. When we came back from the living room after dessert, the solar system was on the floor. 3 planets cracked, the wire arm for Jupiter bent at a right angle, the sun split in half. Paige was the only person who had been in the kitchen during dessert. She was standing at the sink rinsing her plate, and the project was on the floor behind her, and she said, "I think one of the kids bumped it." There were no kids in the kitchen. Every child was in the living room watching the football game. "I think she did it on purpose," I said in the car. Wes was quiet for a mile. He drives the way he thinks, slow and straight, both hands on the wheel. "I saw her hand near it," he said. I didn't want to believe it. That was the first time he acknowledged the pattern. He didn't say anything else about it for months, but he started watching. At Easter, Paige arranged a photograph of Chloe with Gloria on the front porch. She positioned the camera on her phone and said, "Okay, everyone smile." Except Leo wasn't there. He was in the living room, 10 feet from the front door, sitting on the carpet with a puzzle, close enough to hear his name if anyone had called it. Nobody did. The photo went on Gloria's mantle. When I pointed out Leo's absence 2 weeks later, Paige said, "Oh, we'll get one with Leo next time." There was no next time. In July, at a family barbecue at Marco's mother's house, Chloe walked up to Leo while he was sitting on the porch steps and said, "My mom says I'm not allowed to play at your house anymore." Leo asked why. Chloe shrugged the way 9-year-olds shrug when they are repeating a rule they don't understand. Leo sat with that for 2 days. Then at bedtime, while I was pulling his covers up, he asked, "Mom, is something wrong with our house?" Nothing was wrong with our house. Something was wrong with my sister-in-law. I keep records, dates, times, exact words. By the time of Leo's birthday party, I had 11 entries in a dated log on my laptop, 11 incidents over 10 months, each one small enough to explain away alone. Together, they were a pattern. The pattern had a motive, even if it took me too long to see it. Paige and Marco lived in a rented 2-bedroom apartment off Route 4. Marco ran the body shop floor at an auto repair chain, $41,000 a year. Paige answered phones at a chiropractic office, $31,000. Their combined income was roughly $72,000, and after rent, 2 car payments totaling $620, insurance and Chloe's activities, the margins were tight, not desperate. Tight enough that every birthday invitation with a bouncy castle in the backyard reminded Paige of a gap she could not close. The gap wasn't just money, it was position. Paige wanted Chloe to be the primary grandchild, the one Gloria called first, the one who got the larger birthday check, the one whose school events Gloria attended. If Leo was struggling, if Leo was the problem child, if Adrienne was the outsider who didn't understand the Cole family, then Chloe was the investment, and Leo was the afterthought. The console destruction, the science project, the photo exclusion, the isolation, each one was a brick in a wall designed to make Leo smaller and Chloe larger in Gloria's eyes. I married into the Cole family 8 years ago. Wes and I met at a hardware store where he was buying pipe fittings and I was buying a filing cabinet. He carried it to my car. I told him the receipt was deductible. He laughed, That was the whole beginning. But marrying into the Coles meant marrying into a family where Paige had been the center for 39 years. And the arrival of a CPA from a single-parent household who organized her spice rack alphabetically was not something Paige ever adjusted to. I'm a CPA. I run Cole Accounting LLC from the office in my house, handling trust and estate work for a small client base. When a number on a trust statement is wrong, I notice the way a carpenter notices a crooked frame. The trust statement in the green folder was wrong, and I had been too distracted by birthday party planning to pull it and look. Now I pulled it. Gloria had created the revocable trust with $24,000 in January 2021, split evenly, $12,000 allocated to Leo, $12,000 to Chloe. Paige had no authority over either share. The trust document was standard, naming Gloria as trustee with successor appointment rights. But 3 transfers had been authorized by Gloria, $2,400 in April 2023, $3,000 in October 2023, and $3,000 in June 2024. Total $8,400 moved from Leo's share to Chloe's. After the transfers, Leo's share stood at $3,600. Chloe's stood at $20,400. I stared at the numbers for a long time. 4 years of birthday deposits and holiday contributions from Gloria. 4 years of Wes and me matching quarterly. 4 years of Leo's future accumulating in an account that was supposed to be untouchable. And Paige had reached through Gloria's trust and taken $8,400 of it. Not by force, by whisper. Gloria is 64. She trusts her children. She signs what family tells her needs signing. I needed to confirm that Paige was the one who asked, but I already knew. If you're still here, subscribe to Betrayal Unfolded, because this story does not end with a spilled Coke. I called Gloria 3 days after the party. I kept my voice level. I asked her about the trust, about the transfers, about who had asked her to sign them. Gloria was quiet for a long time. Paige told me it would be simpler to consolidate, she said. She said Chloe's school costs were higher and she'd even it out later. She said you and Wes wouldn't notice because you don't check the statements. I check every statement, Gloria, I know. I should have called you first. I know. Did she tell you not to tell us? She said it was between her and me. She said if I told Wes it would cause drama. She said she'd handle it. Gloria, $8,400 is missing from Leo's share. That is not consolidation. I know. Her voice broke. I know it is. That was the confession. Not dramatic, not loud. A 64-year-old woman who loved both grandchildren and trusted the wrong daughter. She started crying. I let her. Paige's texts to Gloria were worse. I asked Gloria to show me, and she forwarded 12 messages over the next hour. Just move the money, Mom. He won't notice. Leo doesn't need all that. He's 8. Chloe's school costs more. You know that. Adrian has her own money. She doesn't need yours too. Don't tell Wes. This is between us. The last one was from June, 8 weeks before the party, if you tell Adrian. I'll stop bringing Chloe to visit. I almost called Gloria back and screamed. Not at Gloria, at the situation. At 12 text messages that proved my sister-in-law had been pressuring a 64-year-old woman for 18 months, but the game list was still on Leo's wall. 12 games numbered in his handwriting, and next to number 7, Chloe might like this one. He was planning to share with a cousin whose mother had been stealing from his future. I set my phone down and opened my laptop instead. I built a 1-page financial summary. Every transfer, every date, every authorization. 2 columns, Leo's share and Chloe's share. Starting balance, transfer dates, current balance. I formatted it the way I format trust summaries for clients. Clean headers. Every dollar accounted for, and at the bottom one line, total unauthorized transfers from L. Cole beneficiary share, $8,400. Carmen Reyes is an attorney who handles estate and family law. Her office is in the same building as mine, 2 floors up. She read the fund summary, the text messages, and the incident log in 20 minutes. These messages may support claims for undue influence, civil fraud, and financial exploitation, Carmen said. The exact classification depends on state law and Gloria's legal status. We can preserve the evidence, send a demand, and submit it to the appropriate agency for review. I don't want to report Gloria. Gloria is the victim, same as Leo. Paige is the subject. Carmen drafted a demand letter for full restitution of $8,400 plus $899 for the console, with notice that failure to comply would result in a formal complaint and a civil suit. Do you want to do this privately or with the family present? Carmen asked. The family. Gloria needs to see what her signature was used for. Then control the room. Show the evidence. Let the numbers speak first. Start with video. That was the plan. Then I did the hardest part. I waited. 14 days. 2 weeks of carrying every piece of evidence and acting like none of it existed. I went to work. I packed Leo's lunches and drove him to school and helped him with his math homework, and every evening I walked past the game list taped to the wall with 12 titles and 0 check marks. The waiting was not revenge. It was preservation. If I confronted Paige alone, she would deny, redirect, call Wes, call Gloria, and build a counter-narrative before I had a chance to present the full picture. I needed everyone in the same room at the same time, seeing the same evidence with no opportunity to rehearse a defense. That is how trust disputes work. That is how family disputes should work but never do. Paige texted me on day 5. Are we good? I feel like things were weird at the party. I typed, all good. Leo's fine. 3 words. Normal. On day 11, she sent another. Leo can come play with Chloe this weekend if he wants. We could do pizza. The woman who poured soda into my son's birthday present and stole $8. $400 from his trust was inviting him over for pizza. I typed, maybe next time. He has a project due. Paige thought the console was forgotten. She did not know about the office camera. She did not know that I had pulled the trust statements. She did not know that Carmen had a demand letter drafted. And she did not know about Wes. The night of the party, after everyone left and Leo was in bed, Wes and I sat on the couch. I connected the laptop to the TV and played the backyard video. He watched it without speaking, watched his sister look around. The pour. The smoke. When it ended, he said, "Play it again." I played it again. He stood up, went to the kitchen and stood at the sink with both hands on the edge of the counter. His shoulders didn't move for a full minute. Then he came back, sat down, and said 2 words. What else? Not are you sure, not maybe it was an accident, not that's my sister, just what else do you have? I showed him the trust statements. We sat at my desk and went through every line together. When we reached the $8,400 total, he closed his eyes and kept them closed for 10 seconds. Then he opened them and said, "Do it." On day 8, I invited the family to dinner. Saturday, September 28th. Pot roast, green beans, rolls. I texted Paige separately. Would love to have everyone over. It's been too long. She replied with a heart emoji. The morning of the dinner, Leo took the game list down from the wall. He folded it once carefully along the first crease and put it in his desk drawer underneath his colored pencils. He didn't say why. When I asked, he shrugged and said, "I don't need it up right now." He was 8, and he had already learned that wanting something out loud makes losing it worse. I almost canceled the whole thing. Almost called Carmen and told her to file the complaint without the dinner, without having to sit across from Paige and pass the green beans, while every number I had spent 2 weeks building pointed at the woman cutting her pie. But Wes was in the kitchen that morning, the trust summary printed on the counter between the coffee maker and Leo's cereal bowl, and his hand was flat on the granite next to it, and his voice was level. "She stole from our son." She did it to his face. Finish it. The dinner was pot roast, green beans, rolls. Gloria brought a pie. Marco brought wine. Chloe and Leo sat at the kids' table in the living room. Paige complimented the rolls. These are good, Adrienne. Did you use the same recipe? I said same one. Wes passed the salt. Gloria asked about Leo's school. Normal, practiced, I waited. At 7:40, after the pie was cut and the coffee was poured, I sent Leo to his room. He went without argument. He knew something was happening the way kids always know, and he took the controller with him. I connected my laptop to the TV above the fireplace. I want to show you all something, I said. Paige's fork was halfway to her mouth. She set it down. The backyard video started at 3:20 p.m. on September 14th. Leo at the console. Paige near the dessert table watching. Then Paige turning to Chloe. Then the walk. The look left. The look right. The pour. The bottle tilting, steady, 4 seconds of Coke into the vent. The smoke. Leo's face. Oops, it was an accident. I tripped. Nobody at the table spoke. Gloria's hand went to her mouth. Marco leaned forward, staring at the screen. Wes sat with his arms crossed, his jaw set, his eyes on his sister. That was not an accident, I said. That was a deliberate pour caught on a security camera with a timestamp. Paige's face went flat. You recorded the backyard? We've had cameras for 2 years. You've been to this house 50 times. This is insane. You're going to play a security video at dinner because your kid's console got wet? Kid stuff breaks, Adrienne. It happens. It happens when someone pours soda into it on purpose. But that's not why I'm showing you this. I clicked to the office camera. 2:51 p.m. Paige walking through the unlatched door. Down the hallway. Into my office. Opening the desk drawer. Removing the green folder. Photographing 2 pages. Replacing the folder. Walking out. Gloria said, Paige, what is that? Paige didn't answer. Marco leaned forward. Paige, what were you doing in their office? I was looking for napkins. The napkins were in the kitchen. You were in her office. You opened her desk. Paige's jaw tightened. She looked at the table. She did not look at Marco again for the rest of the evening. I switched the TV to the trust summary. 1 page. 2 columns. Leo's starting share, $12,000. Current balance, $3,600. Chloe's starting share, $12,000. Current balance, $20,400. 3 transfers listed with dates, amounts, and Gloria's authorization as trustee. Total moved, $8,400. You pressured your mother to transfer $8,400 out of Leo's education trust over 18 months, I said. April 2023, $2,400. October 2023, $3,000. June 2024, $3,000. Each time, you told Gloria it was for Chloe's school costs. Each time you told her not to tell us. And you photographed the trust statement from my desk on September 14th because you wanted to know if I had noticed yet. Paige's mouth opened. You destroyed Leo's science project at Thanksgiving. You excluded him from the cousin photo at Easter. You told Chloe she wasn't allowed to play at our house. You poured soda into his birthday present while 14 kids watched. And you stole $8,400 from his education trust by pressuring a 64-year-old woman who trusted you. That is not an accident. That is not forgetfulness. That is a pattern of targeted cruelty against an 8-year-old boy, and every piece of it is documented. You have no right to talk to me like this in front of my mother. You used your mother's signature to move money that wasn't yours, Paige. You lied to her about what it was for, and you threatened to keep Chloe away from her if she told anyone. My attorney has the texts, the trust records, and the camera footage. Paige's face changed. The composure, the flat expression she had worn through the first video, cracked from the jaw up. Her lips pressed together until they lost color. Her eyes went to Gloria, then to Marco, then to the table. You married into this family 8 years ago, she said. Her voice was shaking, but the words were sharp. You sit in your little office pushing numbers, and you think that makes you the authority on everything. You grew up in a rental apartment. Your mother waitressed. You clawed your way into a community college degree, and now you act like you're better than everyone at this table. Leo sits in a corner at every family event with a screen in his face because you never taught him how to talk to people. You bought him a $900 babysitter because that's the only kind of parenting you know. My daughter plays 3 sports. She has real friends, not usernames. All I got was Marco and a 2-bedroom apartment and a daughter who deserves every dollar in that fund more than your son. Because my daughter actually shows up for life instead of hiding behind a screen. The room held its breath. Gloria's coffee cup was shaking in her hand. Marco was staring at Paige like she had just spoken in a language he didn't recognize. "You're right," I said. "I did grow up in a rental. My mother did waitress, and the woman who clawed her way through community college is the one who caught you stealing from a child's trust, because I read numbers for a living and you forgot that." I kept my voice flat. "You said I married into this family. The outsider is the one who found the fraud. The outsider is the one who pulled the camera footage. And the outsider is the one who is going to make sure my son's $8,400 goes back where it belongs. Every dollar." Paige looked at Gloria. "Mom, say something. Tell her she's overreacting." Gloria's hands were in her lap. She was looking at the TV, at the trust summary still glowing on the screen, at her own name on the authorization lines. She shook her head once, slowly, the way a person shakes their head when they have just realized they were part of something they cannot undo. "Fine." Paige's hands were flat on the table, pressing down. "Fine, Adrienne, I'm sorry. I'll pay it back. We'll work out a schedule. Just delete the video, never show it to anyone else, and we move past this. We're family. The video is evidence, Paige. It's not a negotiating chip. Then what do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry I broke the console. I'm sorry about the money. I'll fix it. Chloe needs her grandmother. Leo needs his cousin. You're going to blow up 2 families over a number on a spreadsheet? $8,400 is not a number on a spreadsheet. It's your nephew's future that you redirected to your daughter because you decided she deserved it more. You moved $8,400 out of an 8-year-old's college trust. Then you poured soda into his birthday present. That's not jealousy. That's cruelty. The collapse was physical. Her shoulders pulled inward, the way a body folds when the frame that was holding it up gets removed. Her hands slid off the table and went to her lap. Her breathing went shallow, the kind where the exhales come in small bursts that sound like hiccups, and her eyes went to the tablecloth and did not come up. There is no version of this where you keep access to my son's money, keep access to this house, and keep pretending it was soda on a console. Gloria has agreed to resign as trustee and appoint me as successor. Carmen has the trust records and every text you sent your mother. The next conversation you have about Leo's future will be with an attorney, not with me. Marco had not spoken since the office video played. He was sitting at the end of the table with his hands around a coffee mug that had gone cold. When Paige said all I got was Marco, he had leaned back. When the killing line landed, he set the mug down without a sound. "You told me your mother gave you that money for Chloe's tuition," he said to Paige. His voice was quiet, not angry quiet. The quiet of a man who is replaying 12 months of conversations in his head and recalculating every answer his wife gave him. Paige didn't respond. Marco stood up, walked to the living room, took Chloe's hand. Chloe looked up from the kids' table holding a crayon. "We're going to Grandma Rose's house tonight," he told her. "Why?" "Because I said so, baby." He walked to the front door, turned back, looked at Paige. "Don't call me tonight." The door closed. The engine started. The headlights swept across the living room wall as the car backed out of the driveway. Paige sat at the table for 3 minutes after Marco left. Gloria was still in her chair, not looking at her daughter. Wes was standing by the kitchen counter with his arms crossed. The TV was still on, the trust summary frozen on the screen. Then Paige stood up, took her purse, and walked to the front door. She did not say goodbye. She did not look at Gloria. She walked out to the driveway, got into her car, sat behind the wheel, and did not start the engine. She was still sitting there 20 minutes later when Gloria left. Gloria walked past Paige's car without stopping, got into her own, and drove away. By morning, Paige was back in our driveway. She had slept in the car, or she had driven home and come back before sunrise. At 6:45 a.m., when I opened the front door to bring in the recycling bin, she was standing on the concrete in the same clothes she had worn to dinner. Her blouse was wrinkled at the collar. Her mascara had run in 2 lines that she had partially wiped with the back of her hand, leaving a gray smear across her left cheekbone. Her phone was in her right hand, the screen dark, and she was crying the way people cry when they have been doing it long enough that the sound has run out and only the motion remains. "Please let me talk to Wes," she said. "Please, just 5 minutes. I need to explain." Wes was behind me in the hallway. He looked at his sister through the screen door for a long time. The morning light was gray, and his face was the same color as the light, and he stood there in his work boots and his flannel shirt, and the distance between the screen door and the driveway was 8 feet, but it could have been 8 miles. Then he said, "There's nothing to talk about, Paige," and he closed the door. She stood in the driveway for another 10 minutes. Then she drove away. She did not come back. Wes closed the door and stood in the hallway. Leo was at the top of the stairs in his pajamas, holding the controller. "Is Aunt Paige okay?" Leo asked. "She will be," Wes said. "Go back to bed, buddy." Leo looked at Wes for a moment, then at me. Then he turned and went back to his room. The controller went with him. Carmen filed the demand letter on October 1st. Full restitution of $8,400 plus $899 for the console replacement. Total, $9,299. 24 monthly payments of $388, with a final payment adjusted to match the exact balance. Carmen also submitted the evidence to the appropriate state agency for review, noting the pattern of pressure, misrepresentation, and threats used to obtain Gloria's signatures. Gloria restored Leo's $8,400 from her own savings on September 30th, so he would not carry the loss while the dispute continued. Carmen's demand required Paige to reimburse Gloria directly and separately pay us $899 for the destroyed console. The legal process had barely started. No court had ruled, no agency had issued a finding, and Paige had not repaid $1. But Leo's money was protected. Paige could no longer reach the trust, and every future claim would have to survive documents she could not rewrite. After the dinner, Marco voluntarily provided Carmen with 12 months of their joint bank statements and the household budget Paige had maintained. Those records showed where the transferred money had gone. Chloe's private softball league registration, $1,200. Travel team uniforms, equipment, and tournament fees, $2,800 across 2 seasons. The rest filled gaps in household expenses that Marco thought were covered by Paige's full paycheck, which was actually $400 shorter each month than the budget he had seen. Marco filed a legal separation petition on October 7th. He told Wes on the phone that he didn't know about the trust. He didn't know about the console video until the TV lit up at dinner. He didn't know about the science project or the Easter photo or any of the 11 incidents in my log. He knew his wife was competitive with me, but he thought it was in-law friction, the kind every family has. The kind you shake your head about on the drive home and forget by Monday. "I keep thinking about the way she poured it," Marco told Wes. "Steady, like she was watering a plant. That's not a temper thing. That's not a bad moment. That's a person who planned it." The fund summary changed the rest. It showed him that the budget spreadsheet Paige maintained for their household had a line item she had invented, supplemental education deposit, $400/month. He had believed she was saving for Chloe's future. She was spending Leo's. Through their attorneys, Marco and Paige signed a temporary parenting agreement. Chloe stayed with Marco and Grandma Rosa during the school week, spent scheduled time with Paige on weekends, and had regular phone calls with her mother while the separation proceeded. Paige was alone on the $1,450 apartment lease. Her receptionist's salary at the chiropractic office was $31,000 a year, roughly $2,080 per month after taxes and payroll deductions. Rent, $1,450. Car payment, $310. Insurance, $220. That left almost nothing for groceries, utilities, gas, and $388 in monthly restitution she could not afford. The budget she had maintained for Marco had been a fiction, and the fiction required 2 incomes and stolen trust money to function. Without either, the numbers fell through the floor. She missed the first scheduled payment. Carmen sent a reminder with a 14-day cure notice. The social fallout was quieter, but it moved through the family like a change in temperature. Gloria stopped calling Paige on weekday evenings. Their Sunday calls, which had run 40 minutes or longer for as long as Wes could remember, dropped to 7. Gloria never said she was angry. She said she was trying to understand, which is what a 64-year-old woman says when she has already understood but cannot bear to name it. Wes's cousin, who worked at the same auto repair chain as Marco, heard about the separation and stopped inviting Paige to the group text for family barbecues. No announcement, no confrontation. The invitation simply stopped, and Paige's name was no longer on the chain, and nobody mentioned it. After reviewing the trust terms with Carmen, Gloria resigned as trustee and appointed me as successor trustee. Paige had never possessed legal authority over either share, but Gloria revoked every informal authorization and required all future instructions to pass through Carmen's office. The trust document allowed for successor appointment, and Gloria signed the transfer of authority on October 4th in Carmen's conference room. She brought a jar of peach preserves for Leo and set it on the table next to the signature page. That was Gloria. Even on the worst day, she brought something for the children. "Am I a bad mother?" Gloria asked Carmen while signing the last page. Carmen looked at her. "You trusted your daughter. That's not the same thing. It feels the same. The difference is what you're doing now," I said. "You're protecting Leo. That's the part that counts." Gloria nodded. She capped the pen and set it down next to the preserves. She did not cry. She had already done that. Gloria called me the following Sunday. The call was 7 minutes. She said, "I should have said no the first time she asked." I told her I knew. She asked about Leo. I told her he was playing games with Wes. She said, "Good, we didn't talk about Paige. We didn't need to." Marco later told Wes that Paige had been calling Chloe every evening during the scheduled call times. Some calls were answered, some were not. On the nights Chloe didn't pick up, Paige would text, "I love you, baby," and wait. Sometimes the reply came in the morning. Sometimes it didn't come at all. I did not ask for details. My responsibility was Leo, not tracking what Paige's evenings looked like from the inside of a rented apartment where the second bedroom sat empty and the lease renewal was due in 6 days. Saturday morning, October 26th, 4 weeks after the dinner. Leo was on the couch with the new console. The console had been purchased with a protection plan that covered $700 of the replacement after inspection. We paid the $199 difference from savings. The old controller, the one Leo had carried into the house on his birthday and set on the kitchen counter next to the cake, worked with the new console. It was the only part that survived the soda. Leo had tested it the morning the replacement arrived, plugged it in, watched the light turn green, and said, "It still works." Then he sat on the couch and held the controller in both hands for a moment before turning on the screen, the way you hold something that came back when you expected it to be gone. The game list was back on the wall, taped in the same spot, same yellow legal pad paper, same 8-year-old handwriting. Game number 1 was checked off in fresh blue marker. Game number 2 had a small star next to it, which was Leo's way of marking favorites. Game number 4 had a new note written next to it in Wes's handwriting, Dad's turn. Game number 7 still said, Chloe might like this one. Leo had not crossed it out. He had not changed the note. It sat on the wall like a door he had not decided to close. Wes was on the couch next to Leo, holding the second controller, dying for the 14th time in a lava level and blaming the buttons. Leo kept showing him where to jump. Wes kept jumping too early. The sound in the room was the game music, and Leo's voice saying no, Dad, the second platform. And Wes saying I hit the button didn't work, and Leo laughing the way he laughs when he is safe enough to be loud. The backyard camera's red light was steady through the living room window. The patio table was clean. The education trust was restructured. The balance corrected. My name as successor trustee on every document. Paige's apartment lease renewal was due November 1st. The rent was $1,450, and the math did not bend. Marco had not been home in 4 weeks. The legal process was still moving. No agency had ruled. No court had decided. Leo checked off game number 3 that afternoon. Wes died 14 times in the lava level and blamed the controller. The list on the wall had 9 more to go. We had time. If this story stayed with you, subscribe to Betrayal Unfolded and leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done at that dinner. And the next time someone tells you it was just an accident, check the camera. Because the camera doesn't blink, and it doesn't forget, and it doesn't care who you are when no one is watching.